According to many old-timers, any farmer worth his or her salt should be able to have fresh peas by Memorial Day. I've definitely managed that a time or two, but not enough to believe it happened regularly enough back in the day to become an expected norm, especially without the advantage of plastic. This year, I decided to try an experiment to push the limits of season extension I could achieve for my hoop house. I planted a row of peas every 2 weeks beginning February 17th. I'll talk more about the observable results in future episode, but for now, the peas are coming up, and it's time to think about building the trellises.
Ziggy, would you get out of the compost, please? Hey, get out of the compost, you fool. Thank you. It's disgusting. Not going to be allowed in the house.
I wouldn't call myself a prepper, at least not in the current general understanding of the word. I don't have an underground bunker filled with beans and bullets and gas masks. But I am a believer in thinking ahead, being observant, and being prepared. There are key differences, none of which I have time to go into now. But many years ago, I decided to start purchasing tools that met two important qualifications. First, I wanted them to be of such high quality that they'd last long enough to become heirlooms that were passed down through generations. And second, they wouldn't depend at all on fossil fuels to operate or use. To be clear, I use a chainsaw all the time. In fact, I really enjoy working in the woods and the garden with a chainsaw. But it doesn't take a PhD in geology to realize fossil fuels are a finite resource, and the Earth's supply is running lower every second. And if there might be a time when I need to know how and be able to do things without fossil fuels, it makes sense to me to research, experiment, and learn those skills now, when I'm not under the pressure of necessity. My first big investment was the Gränsforsbruks felling axe. This is an extremely well-made tool, and I cherish it. The year I got it, I felled every tree worth of firewood for the next year, just to ensure I could, and to help build technique and stamina. Times like these remind me to use my Gränsforsbruks to keep my skills sharp. Today, I'm going to be making some new trellises for the peas. For multiple reasons, I use cedar almost exclusively for my trellis material. First, cedar is light and soft, so it's easy to work with. Second, it has naturally occurring rot-resistant chemicals, which means it lasts a long time, but doesn't require treatment with chemicals that I have no interest in using or having near my food crops. Third, it's renewable, though not easily so, because cedar is a very slow-growing tree. Fourth, I enjoy the smell of the material while I'm working with it. And last, but by no means least, it's free. At least for me. The previous owner of this property paid a logger to come in and cut stumpage. Small cedar trees are of no value on the commercial market, so there are sections of our homestead where there are crisscross layers of cedar saplings laid down like thatch on a lawn, where the loggers cut and left it, or else just mowed over it with their large equipment. In principle, I despise that type of forestry, but it does mean I have lots of cedar that's already down, perfectly sized for my garden, and has been seasoning up off the ground, though the bottom layers are slowly rotting away and are useless for these purposes. As I mentioned, cedar trellis stakes last a long time, but that doesn't mean they last forever. The stockpile I have contains many stakes that I can no longer cut the bottom from and resharpen. They're either too rotten, or I've done that so many times that doing so again would make them too short. So, it's time to start making another round of stakes. I could certainly do this more quickly with my chainsaw, but I enjoy the use of this tool. It's better for the earth and better for me. And if ever there was a time when time wasn't such an issue, it's now, when basically everything out in the wider world is grinding to a halt, and I've got nowhere to go, except out to the garden with my axe.